Greetings to all of humanity's reader joy. It's a pleasure, it's my honor to be out here as usual in nature, always bringing to you this message of emancipation, whereby I'm pointing you to look inwardly to discover that your real identity is your divinity. That's why today I want to speak to you concerning the duality of man. And Neville would have spoken about the duality of man. But much importantly, I just want to remind you that the mentor of Neville Goddard was Abdullah, a black mystic from Ethiopia. And he was teaching Neville Goddard all of these things. So when he taught him the duality of man, what he was really showing us is that God and man are actually one, and that there's an outer man and an inner man, a mortal man and an immortal man. Now, if I should use a simple analogy, I would use the body. Now, the body has the head, which is the highest point, and from the shoulder down is the lower half of your body. Now, the mind or the brain controls the body. And so too, when we look at the duality of man, we see, for example, when they tell you that the Christ was hungry, it is speaking of you having a human experience in limitation. But when it tells you that the Christ stood up in a ship and speak to a storm, and the storm become a calm, or when he called Lazarus from the dead, that is teaching you of God in a man. Now, it doesn't matter which way you look at it, whether you look at it as literal, or if you look at it as psychological, you're going to come back to the one thing that I'm trying to get across to you concerning the duality of man. Now, the people who believe that the Bible is literal and that the Bible is secular history, they believe it literally, that there was a literal man 2,000 years ago who called forth a dead man from the grave. Yet, we have never seen such a thing being replicated through these same people who are teaching it. Yet they claim that it is literal. But I'm saying to you that it is psychological. And once you understand it psychologically, you'll understand what it is saying to you spiritually. How you must call a thing into being. That's why you're told that you must call for these things that be not as though they are. And that is why when Neville began to learn what Abdullah was teaching him, Neville put the things that Abdullah was teaching him to work. And Neville gave an example of him wanting 2 tickets to go to the opera, but these 2 tickets was for his brothers. They wanted to look at a show called, or a play called Aida, and it was stated in all the newspapers and all the bulletin boards that there were no tickets available for Aida. It was totally sold out. But Neville decided that he was going to go to see a different show, but his 2 brothers, their desire was to see Aida. And so Neville, understanding how to work this law and understanding the duality of man, Neville goes into his spiritual self with his assumption of his brothers being there and looking at Aida. He didn't think about the in-between. He didn't think about how he was going to get ticket. He didn't think about how it was going to happen. He was dependent solely on his imagination because he understands that God in man is man's imagination. And that is why you have to understand the duality of man, man physical and man spiritual. And that is why there's only two ways you can suffer, either physical or psychological, which will go back to spiritual. Okay? So here Neville uses mind power to achieve his desire. And he showed you that his desire was fulfilled because of the action of a thief. One who displayed his world or his life in this realm. That's how he sees life. That's how he perceives life. That's the state of consciousness that the man is dwelling in. That state of consciousness is what Neville referred to states, mental states. But they are all infinite and anyone can fall in a certain state. And that is why we have to forgive all, because it's only God playing all of the parts. Now, Neville was able to obtain his ticket because this man went there trying to scam the ticket seller. And Neville was a force and witness that when the ticket seller realized that he's been tricked and he was trying to reach out to the man, Neville was the one who shouted out and said, "Sir, you're needed here. Get back here." And he had to come right back there like a little child. And he had to give the man, the ticket seller, his right money because Neville persuaded him that he saw exactly everything that he did. And Neville said, though this man was much more taller than him and more huger than him in stature, and the way how he was looking at him, he couldn't do him anything because Neville was using the greater power. Okay, which is our true self, our innermost essence. And so he had to pay the ticket seller the right money. And then when Neville got closer to the ticket seller to order his tickets, he asked for 2 tickets for Aida. And the man said, "Yes, sir." And he went at the VIP, which is very important, people. So even though everything had been sold out, the tickets for the VIP, very important, people. Well, Neville said that he didn't see himself as a very important person, but because he was willing to do something on behalf of this ticket seller and help him save himself from having to be paying the money that these guys was trying to scam him off, because he would have to be the one who would have had to pay the balance. Okay, Neville saved him from that. He was willing to help Neville. So Neville was showing you, hadn't it been for the effort of this thief, because, for example, a thief like that is not sorry for stealing. He's sorry because he's been caught. And he would make sure he formulate a better way of getting what he wants. So you see, everyone is creating their world, because this is our own thought that is creating our reality and creating our personality. That is why it's very important for us to understand the duality of man and understand the law of polarity. You see, a lot of people can accept the fact that God created the light, but they have to accept the fact that God created the darkness too, and He created the good and He created the evil too. And He tells you that in Isaiah chapter 45, verses 5 to 7. And in Deuteronomy 32:39, it tells you the same thing too. You see, I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. I am God and there is no other. So you see, my brother, my sister, it's very important for you to discover who is God in man, so that you will be able to understand the duality of man. Man physical, man spiritual, inner man, outer man. Man above, man below. Higher self, lower self. So my brother, my sisters, never share this lesson to teach us that we are to forgive all and to understand that it is God that is playing all of the parts. To understand the power of oneness. To understand the power of knowing who you are. And to understand the system that is here to keep you from discovering that your real identity is your divinity. And that is why everything that you see in that is happening right now, it happened before. And it have to do with this great awakening that is taking place. Every time you have an explosion of population and you have mass science and technology being increased, so too it is happening in the spiritual and psychological world. Everything is expanding. And so when I was leaving the agricultural age and coming into the industrial age, it was a time like now also. And that is why the people faced the Great Depression around 1929 to 1939. And that was the time that Abdullah taught Neville Goddard how to use this power consciously when he wanted to travel to Barbados. And Abdullah told him that he would travel, he have already traveled to Barbados and he have already gone there first class. And Neville had no money, he had no work. He saw it being put in place and how it worked. So my brother, my sisters, when you realize that you are God in flesh, you have to use your God power to achieve your every desire. Just like Abdullah taught Neville Goddard how to use that power to achieve his every desire. Because as I was saying to you before, in the time of the Great Depression, when he went to Abdullah, so we are seeing a time like today also. And now we are moving out of the industrial age. And we are coming into, and have already come into, the digital age, the cyber age. There are many people who are still trapped in the industrial age. And so it's like they were in the system and they're not producing. But I'm saying to you, when you discover the power of your imagination, when you discover your immortal self, your eternal self, then you have to use that power to take you higher so you wouldn't get left behind. You have to use that power, understanding the time that you're living in, using your wisdom. We're living more in a digital age of AI, artificial intelligence, and many people have not lived their consciousness, and they need to live their consciousness. And one of the ways they can is to understand the duality of man. Remember that you're both physical and spiritual. So you must get in touch with your spiritual self. That's why you're told that they that worship God must worship God in spirit and in truth, because God is a spirit. That spirit in you is your imagination, which is the creator in everyone. So my brothers and my sisters, think wisely and use your imagination to create your reality consciously. So with that being said, my brothers and my sisters, just an encouragement for you to accept your duality and to understand everyone else's duality so that you will know how to deal with each and everyone and how to live in the atmosphere of forgiveness and live in the atmosphere of love and having a mind of abundance, because you know that all around you is abundance and God is abundance and you have your God self. Therefore, that God self must never see lack and mediocrity. Okay, so with that being said, my brother, my sister, I want to say if this is the very first time that you're listening to me, what I'm saying, it really makes sense to you and it's really helping you in any way. I would like to say if you haven't subscribed already, I'm encouraging you to subscribe, to like, to comment, to share this video. But just before I leave you, I want to remind you that this message I bring to you, that it is the singular message. Yes, the singular message of self-realization, of which Matthew 6:22 says that if your eye be single, your whole body be full of light. And to be honest with you, my brother and my sisters, hadn't it been that a single eye would have awake within me and my whole body was filled with light, I wouldn't have been here bringing this message to you, saying to you that when it happens to you, you would hear the unearthly wind. You would experience that great and mighty shaking. And you would ascend like a fiery being. and you would exit your skull and become invisible. Yes, you would experience the new birth, the virgin birth. You would experience the resurrection, and then you would tell your story. That's why I always say to you, when you have this experience, you would realize that it is the rising of the S-U-N in a S-O-N, and that it is the dawning of a new day in your life. For the Bible is a son book, and it clearly states in the Bible, in Psalms 84:11, that the Lord thy God is a son, as in a S-U-N, and a shield, and no good thing would he withhold from you. And truly, the Son has never withhold any good thing from humanity. For the Son is what powers all of humanity and give all of humanity its energy. And that is why also in Malachi chapter 4 and verses 2, you're told also that the Son of righteousness, the S-U-N, of righteousness shall arise in you with healing in his wings. That is why when the Son has risen in me, I am bringing healing to all of humanity, pointing each and everyone to look inwardly to discover that their real identity is their divinity, and to use your mind power, which is your sun power, your solar power, your God power, your creative power, which is actually the sexual power. Use that power to achieve your every desire. For that was the message that was taught to Neville Goddard by our ancestor Abdullah. So with that being said, I want to say peace, love you all, I'm out.